these various illnesses. Just talk to me. What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I think you opened up a very important topic, which has come to me multiple times, which is people trying to understand why is the uptake rate of boosters and vaccines so low. And what I expressed in talking to the media is that the messaging was all wrong and the education that was provided to people ultimately would lead to distrust. Meaning that if you are selling the message, take the vaccine and you won't get COVID, or take the vaccine and you won't get the flu, people have completely missed the message of why they are getting the vaccines to begin with. Vaccines are not meant to be a cure. They are not going to cure anything. They are not going to prevent an actual illness. What they will do is they are put in place to actually reduce the severity of symptoms that you otherwise would have experienced if that particular germ was introduced to your body on its own without any defense mechanism.
But you know
And
what?
so
If
when
I can
people
interrupt you
say,
here,
well, I got vaccinated.
oh,
Say it again.
if I could interrupt you here, remember they changed the definition of vaccine to that during COVID, because vaccines, as we were told when we were growing up, even when you were growing up, they prevented you from getting polio, they prevented you from getting rubella, they prevented you from getting smallpox. But during COVID, they changed it to suit the
But
COVID-19 vaccine. Yes.
I still think the definitions of what they were saying, even then, when they said prevented, was completely false. And the reason why I'm saying that that was false is, for example, when you get a chickenpox vaccine, or as you mentioned, those other illnesses that you're describing, what it does is it still introduces a weak response, like a weak, the best way to describe it would be almost like a weak variant being introduced to your body. So almost like a soft punch before you get a hard punch, okay? And so your body is still reacting to it, but it's an internal reaction that would not have, let's say, outwardly display. So for example, when my kids, unlike us, because chickenpox vaccines were not around, we just had to get chickenpox and had a chickenpox parties. Well, for them, when they get the vaccines don't necessarily stop them from having, chickenpox. It actually builds up their antibodies. So their body is actually telling them that they've had chickenpox. They just won't have an outward display that we've had. And so I believe that what the issue has been is how it's been defined, in selling people on the fact that they will not get ill, selling people on the fact that they will be completely free from being able to get these illnesses as a result of getting the vaccines. And that is what is not correct information. People must know that, for example, even when there was a rush around the COVID-19 vaccine, we were facing a population of 330 million people with less than 1 million hospital beds. And so with that, even if, let's say, those hospital beds were already occupied 80% of the time from, let's say, heart failure, from, let's say, labor and delivery, if we're talking about emergency admissions, we can talk about a slew of things, cancer, of why people would go in to be seen. Imagine just only 1% of the population needing hospital beds. That would have already strained the healthcare system. So the theory is that if they could provide these vaccines, they could decrease the severity of symptoms, which then means that people wouldn't have to be hospitalized, and that even if they receive some form of COVID, it would be much more milder than what they initially would have received without the vaccine.
Why do we have so few hospital beds?
Well, that is a good question, but I can tell you that it was predicted that by 2030, a third of hospitals would close because of a lot of the regulatory things that have been put in place. So it's multi-layered here. So as you can imagine, we went from a place of where we didn't have electronic health records. Now that we have electronic health records, there was the meaningful use that was put in place that meant that hospitals had to have these things put in place. And there was like 3 levels of it. Then there was where hospitals had to have these things put in place and that the computers needed to talk to each other. Meaning, how frustrated would it be for you to go to one provider within the same system, get care, and then you go to another provider, and that next provider doesn't know anything that you're talking about? So, as a result of the regulations, when we talk about safety, when we talk about electronic health records, when we talk about a lot of accrediting and regulatory things that have been put in place, a lot of hospitals cannot keep up with that, including HIPAA, and the protections. A HIPAA fine alone for a hospital can be anywhere around $200,000 and up.
That's unbelievable.
So there's a lot of reasons why hospitals have closed, they have folded, and we've actually found that a significant amount of primary care doctors, instead of having their individual practices, have now folded also into these healthcare systems. So we don't have as many providers as we once had. On top of that, the baby boomers retiring, on top of that, enrollment being low because we don't have enough faculty to teach. So that's what I mean. It's really, truly a multi-layered problem.
Well, I mean, you just got back from Saudi Arabia and you see the developing world has a very different approach to healthcare. I mean, they emphasize it. They're building hospitals. They're training medical professionals, nurses, doctors, LPNs. I mean, they emphasize that, and we're not. What is up?
So the thing is the healthcare system just within itself, which has been monetized off of illness, not off of prevention, is, I will believe, the different factors. So whereas before, instead of the whole notion of preventing people to get sick, it's always been about how do you treat disease and how do you treat illness. So it's treating people very reactive instead of proactive, unlike some other approaches, because they understand how important it is to be able to keep people healthy. Now, having, let's say, some automatic shift of trying to go into preventative and, let's say, moving away from this illness-based healthcare system, our infrastructure is so built around our healthcare system economically, and I think this actually would be a good call, a good talk for our economists, that literally trying to automatically shift the paradigm or the infrastructure actually really could collapse or harm. It could harm the dollar, because people don't think about how many jobs are actually invested in that. From the people that actually have to sell products, to the people that's going to come in and educate, to the people that are going to use them, to insurance companies, how hospitals' financial structures are done. That's a lot of things just kind of jumbled all into one that would have to undergo a major transformation. And we're talking about a lot of money loss, unfortunately. And it should not be like that, because we should be valuing life more. But that is the reality of what people are dealing with when they say prevention versus treatment.
Dr. Shanina Knight and everybody, it seems that we need, as Eddie Kendricks from the Temptations used to sing, a change of mind. We need a change of policy. I mean, what we're doing right now is hurting everybody. Instead of fighting all these wars, why not build some more medical schools and nursing schools, hospitals? 330 plus million people, not even 100 million hospital beds, and that's down from 10 years ago. Come on, everybody. Let's talk about Trump's remarks. He said that these immigrants are coming here are poisoning the blood of America. Now, he's not talking about Canadians. No, Africans. People from South and Central America. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Hey, Dr. Knight, I'm trying to pull a lot of rabbits out of the hat this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
My stomach really did a number on me today. So I was, pardon me, everybody, running behind because my stomach was, whew. And every now and again that happens. It does somersaults. Because I did have a stomach surgery, and that's all there is to it. So.
I believe it. Yeah.
So that's.
But you doing okay?
I am uncomfortable this morning. I'll be quite frank with you. I am uncomfortable, but you get on through. That's it. You know, I'm going to keep it moving, and that is going to be it. But I am very uncomfortable this morning, very much so. But like I said, when I had this surgery, I knew that there would be um, that I would have to deal with some fallout, and I was willing to take that chance, and that's that. You know, that's that. That's that. But boy, when it gets uncomfortable, it gets uncomfortable. And today I'm very uncomfortable, and I've got a very full day because I'm moving right now, So I've got a lot of things going on, but that is life, and I will be just fine. That's right, you guys. And a lot of you have been reaching out. You've wondered if I've had the flu. No, I don't have the flu. I have had I had to have an emergency procedure on my eyes. And I don't know, when you think about it, and I get allergies. When something happens to your eyes, you are your eyes water, your nasal passages open up, all of that, and that's what happens to me. Because a friend of mine was chastising me. I love it because he's like a big brother. He said, "You haven't been taking your zinc." I'm like, "Oh, no, no, no," and your vitamin C. "Oh, no, 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 I've been doing that." I said, "But the medicines that I take for my eyes, and I have to take them several times throughout the day because I have some corneal damage. Um, they hurt, and as soon as I take them, girl, my nose starts running." I'm like, "Oh, I am what?" Oh, this is, my nose starts running, and I'm like, "Oh gosh, this is a lot." So there is, there is that. Okay, so everybody, I am fine, and I'm gonna keep this thing moving. Okay, that is it. But that is what I'm dealing with right now. And it's always something. Oh yeah, I mean, honey, it's always something.
Ain't that the truth? And you're right. It does absolutely 100% come just a comfortability with just knowing what it's going to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, yeah, why am I going to even get bent out of shape about this? Why am I going to even get bent out of shape? It is what it is, and we will, work it all out.
Sending date Dr. Gibbs, Dwight McKee, Bryce Green, and Reverend Yuri. No answer from Jimmy yet. I'll try again a few.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. How you doing?
Good morning.
60 seconds, everybody.
Okay. I'm going to come in with a live read that I need you to send to Melissa, okay?
Okay.
It's for Credo Mobile.
Mm-hmm. 10 seconds, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, everybody. And good morning, everyone. Hello, hello. Is everybody there?
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278, 763-WCPT. You know, I have a new sponsor. We're so excited. The station has a new sponsor, and the Santita Jackson Show has a new sponsor. You know, I love to do business with people who want to do business with me, and not just business with me, they want to do business for me. Credo Mobile, Credo Mobile.com, credomobile.com. They have spent $95 million, more than that, almost $100 million for progressive nonprofits that work to create a better world for you. So I want to do business with them. I'm glad that they have joined up with this show because I really think they do some special work. Couldn't imagine a more aligned partner. They're the socially conscious mobile company, and don't think that you're not going to get the best service. No, and the best telephones. No, they have the service that's on par with all of the big guys. The difference is they use their profits to help you. How about that? So, credomobile.com, everybody. CREDO mobile.com. They're going to be one of my new providers. I have to tell you that because I like people who work with me and who work for me. How about that? credomobile.com. You can call them at 877-346 0516, 877-346-0516, working to make the world a better place and to keep us connected via the telephone. Everybody, we're going to be talking about these shirtless hostages are carrying, and one of whom was shirtless, and certainly they were carrying the white flag of surrender, and yet they were killed anyway. You're trying to free the hostages. Families in Israel are angry because they're saying Israeli government's not doing enough, that they're not prioritizing, and they're prioritizing the damage that they want to inflict. This is what the IDF said. They said they don't want accuracy, they want damage. And even Ehud Barak, which is interesting, the former prime minister of Israel and a very, very respected military leader, he slipped in an interview with Christiane Amanpour and said, well, Israel built a lot of those tunnels in Gaza. So what's going on, everybody? What's going on? What's going on? I want you to call me and let's figure all of this out. But let's start off with election 2024. We are inside of 5 weeks before the Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire. I mean, we're here, everybody. And President Donald Trump said that immigrants are poisoning, as he put it, quote, poisoning the blood of our country, poisoning the blood of the country. He said they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country. When they do that, we got a lot of work to do there, poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just 2 or 3 or 4 countries. They're from Africa, Asia. They're from all over the world. They're the problem. It's very interesting. When you go to Detroit, you don't know who's Canadian. You don't know who's American. We never talk about Canadians. And the most visa overstays in the United States are from Canadians. I'm not upset with anybody, but we do have a broken system. But what do you make of the president's remarks? Got a tremendous panel on here who's going to talk to us about it as we pivot into what's happening over in the Middle East, killing unarmed hostages, waving the white flag of surrender. If you have the white flag of surrender, what else can you do? Dr. David Gibbs, historian from the University of Arizona, Dwight McKee, social scientist, and Bryce Green, fairness and accuracy in reporting, Reverend Dr. Todd Geary. Let me start with you, Dr. Gibbs. Your thoughts about Trump's remarks as we go into the 2024 season.
Well, Trump clearly has been saying things that are extremely disturbing. I mean, he has obviously a talent for saying things that are disturbing. The poisoning of the blood of the country, that's certainly reaching a new low, I would say. Admittedly, the political tensions in this country, the breakdown of civility has been widely noted. It's true on both sides, but Trump clearly does stand out in that respect. There's no doubt about it. And every reasonable person should condemn the use of language like that. I think he is nevertheless speaking to something that the Democrats and the mainstream really need to be aware of, which is, I think the issue of immigration is a very explosive issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been surprised living in southern Arizona the extent to which there is a lot of hostility to the idea of open borders. When I hear AOC, who's somebody I contributed to her organization, and I was very enthusiastic about her, but she's a bit tone deaf on this issue. She calls for the abolition of ICE, the immigration service, and that's a wildly unpopular thing with most people. And, the Democrats have gone a little bit far in the direction of, at least verbally, advocating, little restriction on immigration. And, in principle, I can understand that. The problem is most of the country, I think, does not want that. And so Trump is, he is seizing on an issue that has some degree of traction here, even if he's doing it in a very ugly way. So I don't really know the answer to the policy. I mean, in terms of the verbal issue, I think condemning Trump is certainly the thing people should do. But there's the larger policy issue of what do we do with immigration? Again, for most people, I think they see this as a threat to their jobs. Of course, there are racist issues involved, and Trump definitely addresses that and stokes that. But there's also the economic issue many people feel in terms of competition for resources. I mean, we've seen, for example, progressive mayor and the mayor in Chicago as openly been complaining that immigration basically. The arrival of immigrants in Chicago is taxing social services. The mayor of New York complained about the same thing. So there is a serious issue underlying Trump's revolting statements. That can't be denied that this is a substantive issue.
So, Bryce Green, your thoughts? Is Bryce there? Okay. Well,
no, I'm here.
Okay.
Well, I do. I agree that it is a substantive issue, and that people project a lot of their anxieties about other aspects of the economy onto immigration. And of course, they project a lot of their anxieties about the culture writ large onto immigration. The culture wars, we've been hearing that term loom large in American discourse. A lot of it stems from the fact that people are seeing changes in their world, and they're not really adapting to them, and they're not really prepared to have to adapt to them. And that's understandable, even if you set aside the virulent racism at the heart of a lot of these sentiments and Trump's comments in particular. But it's understandable to see that if people are under a lot of economic stress and they're at a legitimate risk of losing their job, and there are powers that point to a scapegoat in immigrants, it's understandable that that issue is going to be such a hot topic. However, the issues of immigration, though, the reason why people are immigrating, a lot of that has to do with a lot of these foreign policies that, you and I talk about on this show all the time. It has to do with the fact that America's capitalist mode of production is extracting so much wealth, so much agency from the global South, that people find that those areas are no longer livable, that they're run by gangs, that they're run by, tin pot dictators who don't have their best interests at heart, but who do have the interests of global capital at heart. Well, this has a cascading effect, and people tend to leave areas where their prospects aren't secure, where their future isn't guaranteed, where their children's future isn't guaranteed. And so they come to places like America, where, prospects are a lot better relative to where they come from. And so a lot of these issues are structural, and they're not talked about in that way. It's mostly talked about as the us versus them, usually in the racist language of, the pure white Americans are being overrun by the barbarian hordes, the brown-skinned, the swarthy hordes. It's a tale as old as time, but especially now in our political moment, it becomes as essential as ever to have to give people a clear understanding of why the things in the world are happening to them, and why it's useful to react with compassion rather than hatred.
Let me go to Noel. We've got several callers before I come to you, Dwight McKee and Reverend Dr. Yuri. Noel, what's on your mind today?
Yes, Santita, what the fellow just said, which was on your show. Well, I'm sorry, you're not on the right. I'm listening to a different. Yeah, no, I was listening to it. He said the people have to know why. That's the secret. All the press tells us what's happening. Your people tell us why, and if you don't know why, nobody can solve what's happening. So we need your message out. I think I called in last week and said, we have to get your message out to more people. And the next day you said you have a website. I went on the website and I can listen to your show again. And that's perfect. So this is great. I have so many things to say, but I know you don't want me to take up your whole show. But, that's why the news is saying Biden's suffering no problem is, your show's told us why he's supporting genocide, and all the Muslims know it. The voters, all these people know it. So that's why they don't want to vote for him. It's obvious, but you won't hear it on your show. I'm gonna have to get off because I've got so much more to say. But you're just amazing, Santita.
You are so sweet. Well, I think it is important that we examine the why. And fairly. But let me go to Pam. Pam, what's on your mind, sweetie? Thank you so much for calling, Noel.
Good morning, Santita and panel. Good morning.
Good morning. What's on your mind, Pam?
Yes, I thought about Santita when you said Reverend Jackson said you really don't mention the name of your opponent.
No. I said Mayor Daley taught my mother and father that you do not mention one of the great teachers they had was their great opponent, Mayor Richard J. Daley. And they learned from him. And now they taught us. That's why it's important to have the context. You don't mention the name of your opponent because you blow them up.
Okay, that's I can understand that, but I think in the case of, let's see, out on bail, Trump, that's a fact. Prison inmate number P011395809, Trump, that's a fact. And if we talk about convicted, I think, found liable of sexual abuse, Donald Trump, then I have no problem mentioning his name. But it seems to me that the press doesn't want to do that.
Well, see, what?
They want to give him a title.
It's not mentioning his name. Let's engage for a hot second. That's because I want to. No. I'm not cutting you off. I want to engage you. I didn't say not mentioning his name. I'm saying all they've done hold on. All they've done is call his name. It's like there's a difference between Diana Ross and the rest of the Supremes. They became a nostalgia act because no one talked about them. But you kept mentioning Diana Ross. She kept doing movies. She kept releasing albums. She kept having hits. So she is still at 80. She's at the center of popular conversation. And what I'm saying is, by bringing up Donald Trump, he could, people always ask you, well, what is Reverend Jackson doing? Reverend is at work every day in a wheelchair with Parkinson's. When the press don't want you to be relevant, they will eliminate you from the conversation. When they want you to be relevant, they mention you every day, even when you lose, Pam.
No, I understand that, Santita, but what I'm saying is, I'm just asking, give Trump his proper titles.
They won't.
If you're going to call him,
and they're not, and that's part of the game too.
That's what we need to. Well, we need to encourage them to. We need WCPT hosts to do it.
No, let me tell you what I'm not going to do. No. My thing is,
it's a fact. It's a fact.
No, these are facts. But you know what? They're also facts that there are also hearings on Biden. You want me to talk about that too? Because if we're going to have balance,
I have no problem with that because that's what they do. But I have no problem with that.
You know what? I only have 2 hours. So what I want to do is talk about poverty. I want to talk about billions of dollars that we are sending. I have to make some decisions every day. And you all let me know by your listenership. No, I'm just explaining to you. I'm just one person here. One person trying to speak with, to, and for you. Okay. So I ask every day, hey, what can what do you want to talk about? What do you think is relevant? And some people think that $4 billion just about, well, $3.8 billion off the top to Israel when we have no say over how our money is spent and it's being spent on a genocide. Well, they want to talk about that. And I just think that I think that we're being gamed here with Trump. That's just my opinion, Pam. But stay right here, Dwight McKee.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dwight said
Well,
something
I
that
don't
was so brilliant. He said,
Yeah.
why turn a what? Stay, don't leave, Pam.
I turn a mouse into my
Why turn a martyr into a monster? Why turn a monster into a
right,
martyr? Yeah.
Right. But what I want to deal with, I want to start with this area. And how Pam is always relevant to me, and I understand what she's saying in terms of give them the whole title, give them the whole resume, if you do call his name. This mentality, this immigrant mentality, is so arrogant and arrogant. This pure bloodline and the presumption of racial superiority is at the heart of both what's happening over here on the immigration side and what's happening in Israel with the Palestinians. Is that this bloodline mentality, that there's a pure bloodline. I mean, Trump has been married. Most of his women have not come from the United States. They've come from overseas. They're immigrants. In fact, his current wife talked about her whole immigration story the other day to the immigrants.
Dwight, he's barely
And
here. His
somehow
family's
he's not-
from overseas. He's barely got here
his
himself.
family, Trump is not even his real name. And so when the presumption that somehow because they have this purist bloodline, that they therefore are different than anybody else who are not pure white, blonde hair, European, is at the heart of most of the problems in the world, to be honest. Is, there were no white people in Chicago 200 years ago. No white people. And that's why it's called Chicago. And that's why it's called Illinois. And not our way. There were no white people here. And so to assume that the people who lived here got displaced from here are now immigrants and is a problem is a presumption. To take people who you take them off their land, they protest. And because they protest, now you think you have the right to kill them because now they are a nuisance, is a sickness. And you're not willing to compromise or not willing to explain your situation. You just feel like you have the right to Canada and the right to Australia and the right to South Africa. What needs to be examined, if anything needs to be examined, is why these Europeans feel like they have the right to just take anything, that the planet is theirs, and they are somehow superior to anybody who is not them and don't look like them. It's Hitler all over again. It's the same mentality. It's a chosen people mentality. We need psychologists and theologians to really, really look at this. I mean, to make Jesus white, because the only God you can serve has to look like you. There's something profoundly sick about your thinking thought processes.
Pam, don't leave. Reverend Dr. Yuri, I've got 2 minutes before we go to break.
I think it's clear if we just sit for a minute and just listen. You hear that?
Yes.
Everybody, okay, that's a dog whistle. And the dog whistle is designed for the dogs to hear. There's a response. There's a tapping in that Trump is beginning, as he did before, into the rage of certain white people who typically have been disaffected by the political process and have not engaged. And all he's trying to do is get them in a place where when they get ready to vote, they're not looking at down ballot. They're going to do what we call single shoot. They're ready to just go pick his name because they believe he's defending their cause. He always says, I'm here for you. Then this tapping into the fear that immigrants from the southern border are going to somehow displace their place on the social strata is exactly what he's doing. And so in the course of understanding how this thing works, if we look at the history of immigration, immigration has always been tied to a labor need. If you go back and look at the immigration of the early 1900s, that was mostly, if not all, Europe, trying to get in the middle of the industrial economy. As we shifted to needing to be able to feed ourselves without driving up the price of being able to feed ourselves, we started needing cheap labor. Cheap labor from the South doesn't have labor protections, doesn't have union participation, doesn't get health insurance, any of that. And so part of this is by the design. On one hand, we have a need. On another hand, we have this fear of displacement, and Trump is blowing this, you hear it? The dog whistle to make sure that they're able to respond. And so at the core of this, Trump is recognizing that there is a disaffected class in politics that he can tap that other folks have ignored, and he's coming directly at the message that resonates with them, which is fear of racial displacement. It's what Big Brother Dwight just said. It's not new. Frances Cress Welsing told us about it when she wrote the ISIS papers. Let's be really, really clear that there is still a deep resentment. We see it coming from the Supreme Court in terms of backing down from affirmative action, racial enforcements, but we also see it from the disaffected class of everyday white people, and that's who Trump's going after.
Well, let's talk about that today, and let's talk about what happened in Israel. How is it that, you're looking for the hostages? Families in Israel are very upset. They're like, the government is not doing enough to get them back. Whatever deals we need to cut, we want our loved ones home. Okay, well, 3 were released, unarmed. 1 was shirtless, all waving white flag of surrender, speaking in Hebrew, and they get shot and killed anyway. What? Jimmy Rothschild is with us. We're so glad that you're with us, and if not now, Julian Dwight McKee and Reverend Dr. Tom Geary, Dr. David Gibbs, and Bryce Green. We got a lot to talk about. Stay right there, fam, so we can engage during this commercial break. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Pam?
Yuri, that was a good.
She's no longer there.
Oh, okay.
Coming from you, man, I'm floating. My Monday's starting off all right.
Okay, you all. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, sorry I didn't catch a call when it first came in. My phone is, how phones are.
Honey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just good hearing your voice.
But we all here now.
You're all together now. Dwight McKee, social scientist, Dr. David Gibbs from the University of Arizona, historian, and fresh off of making so many young people miserable for the holidays. Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. Bryce Green. Oh, yeah. Wait a minute. Trying to run and grab that mail before your parents get those grades. Ow! And then, of course, we've got Bryce Green from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, but we know his grades were great, right? Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I love you guys. So there we go.
Santita?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and run. I've got court this morning. I'm in the middle of
okay.
trial, but I wanted to be a part of the discussion. But I appreciate you letting me jump in.
Oh, well, we love you.
I love you back. You all be good. Take care.
Thank you. So you all can talk amongst yourselves. I'm trying to do some housekeeping here. So,
Pam, you still on? Pam.
No, she's not. But why don't you speak to her? Because Pam does observe.
I understood exactly what she was saying. She was just saying that they give, when they call these people's names, they give abridged versions. They give the Eleanor Woods version of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And they always sanitize. They don't give all of the facts. And that's for Trump and for Biden. But if you do that, if that's your focus, it does take you off of the main point, which is the needs of the people, and you don't want to become so fixated on the personalities that you start dealing more with gossip than gospel. It's very important that you keep your focus and make sure the issues become preeminent, because ultimately that's what we live and die by, the issues.
I just feel like we're being gamed. I really do. Because if they wanted to make Trump irrelevant, they sure could have done it. They did it to Dr. King. This is what they do. But they did not do that. They made him. It's almost as if, they wanted him to be in the mix. And that for me is problematic, and it makes me suspicious.
But certainly it makes for more press.
Yeah.
It's a greater story. It's a bigger story. And they can sell more ads for newspapers.
Yeah. I see them playing a lot of games here. But keep talking.
Yeah, I think people don't understand how much of this has to do with money and the selling of ads and the selling of news. It's like the Taylor Swift being the Time Person of the Year.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's nothing but how many Time papers can we sell? Time magazines can we sell? There is nothing that is relevant enough with her in terms of world events that would suggest that she, over the political world, over the Pope, over the scientists, that all of a sudden she's on a world tour and now she's the most important woman of the year. That's all about selling ads.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be sophisticated enough to see behind the veil in all of this.
Selling ads and an agenda, because you can't even watch these award shows anymore without feeling like you're watching a satanic ritual. Sam Smith comes out with devil's horns on in red. I can't remember a performance. I remember when Barbara Streisand and Neil Diamond for the first time sang "You Don't Send Me Flowers in Person," because that hit was the brainchild of a DJ. They happened to be singing the song in the same key, and he decided to mix them one night, and it became a number one hit. So it became a number one hit, nominated for a Grammy, and then what happens? Well, for the first time they performed it was there at the Grammys. You don't have anything like that now. You have all this bizarre stuff. I don't even watch that crap. It's just ridiculous. And it's not just crap, it is programming. And I think it is programming to be corrupting, quite frankly. It's not right. It's not right. So anyway, Jimmy Rothschild, Dr. David Gibbs, Dwight McKee, and Bryce Green, consider yourselves hail fellows well met. And we're going to get going in a hot second. Hey, that's what I got to do. Okay, how much time do we have, Devin?
You have 1 minute and 40-something seconds.
Okay, great. So what do you make of now there's stories that Biden is very upset about? He's frustrated by his dismal poll numbers. That's the Washington Post article today. What do you think about that? Anybody?
Okay. I think that what it reflects more than anything else is the state of the economy. Famously in 1992, James Carville, during the Bill Clinton campaign, put up sign in the campaign headquarters, it's the economy, stupid. It's all about the economy. It's always about the economy. And that's what, political scientists.
1 minute, everyone.
That's the number one thing people are concerned about. And in this case, I think what they're concerned about is living standards. Effective living standards have gone down for most people. Mm-hmm. Even though inflation has abated, prior inflation has reduced, earning power below what it was when Biden was inaugurated. And so people do blame the incumbent president, which is Biden. And so I think that's what's going on here. It's decline of living standards and Biden taking the discredit for that.
10 seconds.
And so I don't think we've been...
Okay.
Hello?
I know I had 10 seconds. We're being counted in.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 20, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want to hear from you today. Meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. We go to the YouTube channel. That's where Facebook said they want everybody to go to migrate to, if you will. We've been talking about Trump's comments about migrants, but now we're kind of switching over to these hostages who were either left behind by Hamas or they were able to escape. The story is not quite clear, but we do know that these three young men are dead. Having waved the white flag of surrender, one of them was shirtless. So you knew we didn't have munitions on him. What happened and what is the nature of that fight there? Is it just shoot to kill? Is that why we have 19,000 plus Palestinians dead since October 7th? Not to mention the many more under the rubble. What is going on, everybody? What is going on? We've got to talk about that. Now, the Secretary of, the Pentagon Secretary, Austin, is over there today to sit down with Israel to ask them what their plans are. What are your goals? Because now America is under a tremendous amount of pressure because the world is looking at us as the sponsors of this, as the sponsors of genocide. And I want to hear your thoughts. 773-763. 9278 773 763 WCPT. Let's get to the headlines, everybody. 3 hostages were mistakenly killed by Israeli forces in Gaza. The men were holding white flags of surrender when they were shot on Friday, according to Israeli officials. Will dig down on that story in just a few minutes. Rudy Giuliani was ordered to pay $148 million to these 2 election workers who said their lives were turned inside out, upside down, death threats constantly. And Rudy Giuliani, for his portion, is holding on to his false accusations that they were passing drugs and on and on and on. Racially tinged, really racist accusations and attacks upon these 2 black women. President Biden is increasingly frustrated by his dismal poll numbers, according to this Washington Post report. For months, Biden has complained to his aides and to friends about his low approval ratings. In recent weeks, he has grown upset about a lack of progress. What do you think are driving these ratings? Is it Israel? Is it the fact that, while on paper the economy is better, actually people don't feel it? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 32 degrees. It will be sunny. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 24 degrees will be the high. In the NFL, wow. Who's going to be at the Super Bowl? We don't know, but these are some exciting games. The Ravens 23, the Jaguars 7, the Bills 31, the Cowboys 10, the 49ers 45, and the Cardinals 29. The Eagles will be playing the Seahawks tonight in the NBA. The Bulls will be facing off against the 76ers. The Timberwolves will be facing off against the Heat. And in the NHL, the Canucks, well, they bested Chicago 4-3. and the Wild will be playing the Penguins tonight. As I shared with you in the last half hour, the Santita Jackson Show has a new sponsor. We're so proud to be aligned with them. They're a new sponsor for the whole radio station. Very, very excited that they are aligning themselves with us. I love doing business with people who not only want to do business with me, that means they respect me, but they also contribute to causes that help me. credomobile.com. They're the socially conscious mobile phone company. They have spent more than $95 million and they've donated them to progressive causes. Now, that's very, very important because, many of us think that those who donate to progressive causes will give us inferior products. No, they have phones and coverage and plans that are on par with the big guys. The difference is the big guys don't really contribute to you, but credomobile.com does. So I want you to do yourself a favor and call them at 877-346-0516, 877-346-0516. Give them a shout out. Go listen to their plans, look at their phones. They have the best of everything. More than that, they have your best interest in mind, having spent more than $95 million on progressive causes. I love to help people who help me, and I'll help you help me. How about that? And they're going to keep us connected to credomobile.com, CREDO mobile.com, CREDO mobile.com. Call them at 877-346-0516. Let's talk about what happened in Israel. It's just absolutely tragic, quite frankly. It's just tragic. As Biden is worried about his poll numbers, and he ought to be, because even though he's not facing any opposition in the quote Democratic primary, close quote, because everybody's been squeezed out except Dean Phillips. Wonder how he's going to do. We'll see. We'll have to see about that. No debates. That's Donald Trump's not attending the debates. Well, there are hostages in Gaza who were killed while carrying white flags of surrender. What do you think about that, everybody? Now, these are 3 Israeli hostages. The story is not clear whether they were left behind or whether they escaped Hamas. But we do know that they were shot and killed on Friday by Israeli forces. They were shirtless. They were waving the white flags of surrender, and they were shouting in Hebrew. And yet they were shot and killed. Yotam Hayim, Alan Shamriz, and Samir Talalka. What happened? So let's talk about that. And what does that say about the nature of this, of how the IDF is conducting this war? I mean, are they just indiscriminately killing people? Remember, the IDF said at the beginning of this that they were not looking for accuracy, they were looking for damage. And now you have more than 19,000 people, at least on top of the rubble, who've been killed. We don't know how many people have been trapped under the rubble, how many corpses there are under the rubble. We do know that Gaza, it was said several years ago that Gaza would be the worst place, the most unsafe place for children. Now it is officially the worst place in the world to be a child. Worst place in the world to be a child. 70% of those killed have been women and children. Who does that? What's going on here? And you've got these Israeli families pleading with their government, just bring my people home. I don't care what deals you need to cut. Because most of those Palestinians who are in the jails have not been charged with anything. They were throwing rocks. The kids. So, we are joined by Jimmy Rothschild of If Not Now. We've, of course, got Dwight McKee. We've got Reverend Dr. Uri had to leave us, Bryce Green, and Dr. David Gibbs. Let me start with you, Jimmy. Jimmy Rothschild, what is this? You're carrying the white flag of surrender. Isn't that supposed to mean something?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were exactly right in your introduction, Santita, when you said that, this underscores 2 truths that I think haven't been getting through to people enough. And one of those is that there is little to no care for civilian life being exhibited by the IDF here, right? It is indiscriminate violence. the vast majority of those 20,000 people plus who have been killed have been civilians. And that you have these soldiers who are firing on people who are obviously surrendering is not an aberration, right? This is part and parcel of the IDF's tactics and strategy
Wait,
in Gaza and beyond.
Don't go past that too quickly. You're saying what happened with these 3 young men and their kids. You said this is not an aberration?
So it is, in that it is not any different than what they have been doing so far in Gaza, right? They have been targeting civilians. They've been targeting people who are unarmed. And the fact that these hostages were killed is part of that pattern, right? Because they didn't, whether or not they knew who these people were, like they knew, like you said, they were shirtless, they were clearly unarmed, they were clearly surrendering. So I mean, I think this just lays the fact that they turned out, unbeknownst to the soldiers who were firing on them, that they turned out to be their own countrymen, right? Makes it more newsworthy, makes us pay attention. But it makes me think, how many of these 20,000 were also unarmed? And we know that answer is many, 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 right?
I mean, and basically, who were holding up their arms, surrendering. I mean, that's what's, I mean, people who've tried to return back to northern Gaza, that's what's happened to them. How?
Exactly.
So explain to what is the IDF doing? I mean, what is driving that those kinds of actions? Is that their philosophy? I mean, what is this?
I mean, I think it's the philosophy that, that what's underlying, that the hostages are an excuse, right? And this is a tragic representation of that there is no real care by the Israeli government for the actual hostages. They saw this horrible situation happen on October 7th. They saw these 200 hostages get taken back to Gaza, and they saw an opportunity to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing in Gaza, which had been a goal of the Israeli government for years and years and years, since they pulled out of Gaza 20 years ago, right? They want that land. They want that territory. They want
the gas,
they want to expel or kill the Palestinians who are there. They saw an opportunity. They don't care. Caught myself. Trying not to swear on your radio show, Santita.
I know you were right there, but thank you.
They don't care about the hostages. The hostage families, like you said, they've been out there for the 80 days of this conflict saying, bring our people home, do what you need to do to bring our people home. And the fact that they just, killed them in such a visible fashion, these 3 young men, shows it's never been about that. If it had been about the hostages, every IDF soldier would have known these are the faces of these 200 people. These are who they are. This is where they are. They have the intelligence. They know. They have to know. But it's not about the hostages. It's about exerting power. It's about extending the settler colonial project that is Israel into Gaza and into the West Bank to grab that land, to grab that power.
Dwight McKee, you've always asserted that it appears that this October 7th attack has been a pretext to seize Gaza's gas, oil, land, as Jimmy Rothschild just said. Dwight?
Yeah, and what the hostages didn't need was a white flag. What they needed was red hair, like the other hostages, because then they would have understood that these weren't brown people of no consequence, that they had the right to shoot regardless of. Had they had red hair, they'd understood that somehow these are more European hostages and you don't have the right to kill them at will. I think Rothschild is right directly. This has always been a pretext for genocide. They don't care about the hostages being sacrificed. I think those who they believe can be saved is value added. But if you have a choice between killing the multitude of Palestinians and saving a multitude of hostages, I think the die is in, that they're willing to do whatever they need to do to slay those people who are in their way to take their land and their resources. And the world should call it for what it is. Only the American press keep making excuses for what's happened over there in painting a more dignified picture of this genocide, this mania, this maniacal need to kill and to seize all of the assets and all the resources and to drive these people into oblivion. Only American press keeps talking about how this is a defensive maneuver and paint these people as collateral damage. You kill women and children, and then your justification for it is, well, actually, I was, shooting at a building. They happen to be there, and they're only collateral damage. These people are war criminals. They're barbaric, and the world needs to say so.
Bryce, your assessment of how the American press is handling this, because to Dwight's point, when you look at the press, when you look at the portrayals of what has happened here in international media, it is quite different, and particularly in the global South. Bryce Green.
Right. Well, it's quite remarkable in the Western press. Every time that there's a blatant example of Israel having disregard for civilians and disregarding the laws of war and actually specifically targeting civilians, everyone in the Western press asks, like, well, how could they do this? Well, if this is true, this should be seriously investigated. But they don't bring in the fact that this has been a long-standing policy of Israel in all of its wars. I mean, go back to 1948, go back to 1967, go back to all the operations in Gaza prior to this. The disregard for civilian life and for the laws of war has been part and parcel of the Israeli way of war. If you really want to take a look at this, go back and look at the testimony from the various soldiers on the ground during the last operation inside of Gaza, Operation Protective Edge, and they'll pretty much say exactly what we're seeing now. They'll say that they had orders to shoot anything that moves, that this is a free fire zone, that any object you see here can be considered a combatant, and that there are no laws of war here. And, you see the same thing now. There was just a report in Haaretz, the Israeli daily, about all these Telegram channels that are sprouting up when Israeli soldiers are posting videos of themselves mutilating Palestinians. And, they say it pretty explicitly. They say that they're exterminating the roaches. That sort of rhetoric is just a hallmark case of genocide. But every time that clear evidence emerges, the Western press seems to act like it's novel and that it's an aberration, that it doesn't follow in the old trends, and that they're really sure that Israel would never do something like this. It's pretty ridiculous, the mock surprise that they have. It's not serious. They understand what Israel is. They understand. They see the same numbers we do. They see the same videos of people being buried under the rubble. They understand that Israel's policy has been to target its hostages. They understand that there is a thing called the Hannibal Directive, which encourages Israeli military not to regard the hostages as worth protecting. That's a common tactic among the American military, but you don't hear that here. Here, it's the people they're being misled. And it seems to be an effort to confuse them, to obscure reality, to make it seem like Israel is doing all it can to limit civilian casualties. You hear that line all the time. But the reality is clear. And the more and more American media try and hide this, the more and more people start to distrust it. The more and more people see through other media that the Biden administration is fueling some of the worst atrocities of the 21st century. This is in our name. This is blood on our hands. And the American media seem hell-bent on keeping that from us.
Dr. David Gibbs, have a couple of minutes before we go to break. I mean, this is horrifying.
It's definitely been seeing very disturbing, yes, one might say even genocidal language coming from Israeli officials at multiple levels, including in the government, especially in the government. Just yesterday in Haaretz, there was an article about an Israeli local official who spoke in unbelievable terms. He said, what we need to do is empty Gaza, send the remaining inhabitants, I guess the surviving inhabitants, to Lebanon, and make the whole place look like Auschwitz.
Wait a minute. Could you believe that? Make the place look like Auschwitz? What was he thinking? I mean, what was he thinking?
Yeah.
I read that
It
and
was mind-blowing.
I almost fell out, and no one in the American press is even talking about that. I said, whoa. Have you ever been to Auschwitz? I said, this is one of the most horrifying places on earth. Are you for real?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What kind of, it's like, did he learn anything over there? I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, it was heartbreaking. And you know what, Dr. Gibbs, my heart was broken because I said spiritually, he is so out of the loop. He's so out of touch.
Yeah.
And there is no social promotion with God. If you don't get the lesson, God sends you right back into a situation so that you will learn. And that is what's heartbreaking and frightening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. It's very disturbing what's going on, and in the language,
God bless you.
Matches some aspects of what Israel is doing, and you do indeed get a policy here to make Gaza unlivable. That is what is going on here, and the killing of the 3 Israeli hostages, I think that reflected let's just say a certain trigger happiness on part of Israeli forces, and a certain indiscriminate nature of the use of violence. And in this case, killing Israeli citizens. And so what we're seeing here, I think, is, let me say that the most important issue for me as an American citizen is what is my country doing about this? And what my country, the United States, is doing about this is enabling the whole thing. The United States has enormous leverage on Israel. And it is not using that leverage because it is essentially endorsing and enabling what Israel is doing. And the criticisms, the very mild criticisms you're seeing coming out of the Biden administration, I suspect they're just cosmetic, just a way of, alleviating concern internationally as well as concern among young people who are demonstrating against Israeli policies. But I don't think it's a real. It has no credibility because there's no threat of cutting off aid to Israel, which is really, if the United States were serious about doing something about Israeli atrocities, they would cut off aid. By the way, I don't think there's any justification for the aid at all. Apart from what Israel is doing, there really is no justification for America subsidizing Israel's military as it's been doing for 50 years. But it certainly is especially outrageous when Israelis are talking openly about turning Gaza into Auschwitz. How can the United States support that?
Hold that thought. Let's talk about it on the other side. Back in just a moment on the Santita Jackson Show. Oh, wow. Oh, well, please continue. When I read that, I almost fell out. It was so horrifying. And I said, what are these people thinking? But they're behaving this way. Human animals. The contempt that, and I have to tell you, as a Black American, I feel some kind of way about that because I know how we've been discussed. I know how we've been treated. Gynecology was built on experiments on Black women, and we were never given anesthesia. Can you imagine? And in the hospital now, more and more Black women are rejecting hospitals, and they want home births because they're like, I need someone who's going to understand me, and I want to live, and I want my child to live. We're being treated this way today in the United States. Dwight McKee, you were about to say something?
No Black can, but it's really no different than shock and awe, which we glorify. We did the exact same thing in Iraq, in Iran, in Libya. It's no different than shock and awe. It's just we use more. They use more tanks and we use more planes.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than what happened with the Navajo and the Mohegan. That's why I talk about the mentality of ethnic superiority and these pure bloodlines, where you see anybody who is not you as less than human. That's the danger of this mentality. So ostrich is bad when it happens to you and yours. It's wicked and evil. But you want to impose it on other folk who are not you because somehow they don't matter as much as you. This is the mentality that has been behind most wars and most murder for the last 500 years.
Well, it's easier to kill and injure people who are alien to you. And that's not a color thing. That's just a thing, a people thing. And that's a tragedy. That's a tragic thing. This is what we do. But this is this is this is that issue writ large, Jimmy. Jimmy, who almost cursed on the air.
Absolutely.
But I'm not mad at you. I said, Devin, make sure you.
No, you're exactly right. And I think, Dwight, you're exactly right to point out that this is, to situate this in the history and the context of settler colonialism, right? You talked about the sort of ethnic cleansing of indigenous Americans, right? This is no different, right? And that sort of the American project of manifest destiny of taking this land belongs to us sort of by divine right. And the sort of like mix of like divine right and like capitalist need that's driving it is the same as what's driving sort of this modern form of Zionism in Palestine right now.
60 seconds.
But when you hear that that they want to make Gaza look like Auschwitz, I want you to react to that on the air, because I think that it's important for you to go on record with that. Because the whole Jewish community, would have that they don't feel that way. And I think what these people are doing is so damaging. But they're damaging to everybody. Oh.
10 seconds.
Stand by. We're coming up.
Absolutely.
We're inside of 10 seconds.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, if you want to get some great conversation, you need to meet the Morning Stars. The Morning Stars, because we have been talking about these young men, these hostages who were on their way home, waving the white flag of surrender, and yet they were killed by the IDF. Just a complete contempt for life. And it's just, and then, you hear this discussion. David, what is it? How do you pronounce his name? Is it Azulai? Jimmy Rothschild, he's the head of the Metula Council. And proposed sending all Gazans to refugee camps in Lebanon and to make the whole Gaza Strip become an empty museum like Auschwitz. What? What is that? Who is he? What is that?
It's horrifying is what it is. And I think, you had said earlier, it made you almost fall out of your chair, and I felt the exact same way. I think that, it shows how corrupting, right, this project of colonialism is that Israel represents, right? That you can have people a couple generations removed from Auschwitz itself then saying,
Oh, Jimmy, are you there? Oh,
He just dropped the phone
okay.
back.
No, we'll get him back. But he was making the point, Bryce Green, that just a couple of generations removed from Auschwitz, and it's like there's a disconnect, Bryce.
Right. People often make the comparison between the fascism of Nazi Germany and the fascism of America. But it's often said that Israel is sort of America's little brother, and in a lot of ways, America or Israel reflects a lot of the tendencies that we see today in America, ramped up to the extreme. We talk about white nationalism here in America, the belief that America should be, for white people only, of European descent. In Israel, they have almost the exact same ideology, except instead of white people, white supremacy, it's what Israeli organizations call Jewish supremacy. This idea that Israel is only for the Jewish people and their descendants. The ideology justifies a lot of the violence and destruction and hateful rhetoric that we see in Israel. And it goes to the extreme that they're appropriating symbols of the Holocaust, like the Auschwitz Museum, one of the great tragedies of our time. And they're saying that we want to be like that. And, there's a reason that, they will smear their opponents as anti-Semitic. It's because anti-Semitism brought some of the most horrid atrocities in world history. And there's a reason why the International Holocaust Remembrance Association, the IHRA, they made a definition of anti-Semitism that equates comparing Israel to Nazi Germany as to be anti-Semitic. Even if Israel is putting millions of people in a concentration camp, murdering them indiscriminately, trying to implement a regime based on racial supremacy, if anyone calls that for what it is, fascism, well, the IHRA definition allows people and institutions to go after people who make that comparison and label them anti-Semitic. Mm-hmm. And so you have this perverse defense mechanism built in to the Zionist ideology, wherein people who criticize it and call it out for what it is can be called anti-Semitic, can be called bigoted. It's an abuse of language. It's an abuse of history. It's abuse of pain. But that's what we're up against. When we're fighting for Palestinian rights, when we're fighting against Israeli apartheid system, we're also fighting against the propaganda war, the Hasbara war, the public relations war, of all of these symbols being appropriated to justify this horrible ideology. It's a staggering situation.
Jimmy Rothschild, your phone dropped. You were making your point as we look at these comments. That after you level Gaza, after you get everybody out, to make the place, build a fence around it and make it look like it look like the Auschwitz Museum. Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was saying when we got cut off, it's horrifying. It's horrifying as someone who has ancestors who were killed there, and as many of us are. And I think we're seeing the thing that gives me hope is in this moment is seeing how the growing movement of Jewish people here standing in solidarity with Palestinians, right? That this is not, these people they try, just like my friend was just saying a moment ago, there are elements within the community trying to say any criticism of this is anti-Semitic, and there is a growing element within the community saying, absolutely not. We reject these definitions of anti-Semitism. We believe that the solution to Jewish safety is not putting other people in danger, but it's solidarity. We just got through with Hanukkah, the 8th night of Hanukkah. There were 8 cities throughout the country or more where they shut down highways, they shut down bridges, including here in Chicago and in Minneapolis, St. Paul, to say, listen, these people do not speak for us. And we need to just keep hammering that home, keep hammering home there's this idea. I think part of what's behind this, right, is this idea that this fear, right? It's a reaction from fear that this horrible thing happened to us. We need to be in this position of power over others to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're told, that the Jews are unsafe, and that is true, right? Anti-Semitism is real. Rising anti-Semitism is real, and we get told by our community that the only solution is total assimilation or is Zionism and power over others, right? And it's doing to others what was done to us. And what that leaves off the table is a solution of solidarity, of fighting alongside marginalized people in the United States and around the world, immigrants, Black folks, Palestinians, et cetera, to fight capitalism and white supremacy, which are the forces that are really holding all of us back, right? And so when I see things like that, like what this gentleman said about Auschwitz, when I see people saying any comparison to this is anti-Semitic, when they're making the comparison themselves, what I see is, nah, man, like we got to do something different. And seeing the growing number of people in our community who are coming along with that is really hopeful.
But it's shocking. This is an Israeli mayor. I mean, he's an elected official. I'm trying to understand the thinking there. And is there pushback in Israel against what's happening in Gaza? Because, when you see everybody every night coming from Tel Aviv, in different spots in Israel, it looks like everything is great. People going to restaurants, they're having, they're living their best lives. While these people on the West Bank, they're killing the people on the West Bank. That's what the settlers are doing, and the people on the Gaza Strip are being slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
no, hold on, Dwight.
Hold
on, Dwight. I wanted to, just before you get there, I mean, do you have any relatives or friends over there, Jimmy? I have friends in Tel Aviv
I think I have less than a lot of other Jewish Americans, and I think that's part of why I'm able to just be like, not forget that mess. But Santita, you said this is an elected official. We know very well that just because someone's elected official doesn't mean they're a good person.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
There is a lot of this. We know that there's a lot of this sentiment, this genocidal sentiment throughout Israel. There's a very small, active, anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist Israeli left. And I know a few of those folks, and they're trying really hard, but they have an increasingly uphill battle as Israel every day and every year moves further to the right. I also really appreciated that you brought up what's happening in the West Bank as well. I think people are forgetting about that because of what's going on in Gaza. I have some friends Palestinian friends living in the West Bank. I was over there a couple of years ago. 2019 was 5 years ago. Now that is upsetting. I was over there 5 years ago. Spent a couple of weeks in the southern West Bank with some Palestinian folks and saw the way that not only the settlers, but the settlers in combination with the army and the government are engaging in this process of making the West Bank unlivable for Palestinians through small daily acts of terror, right? Harassing children on their way to school, burning crops, etc. And that is increasing, and they're we've seen in the last 2-3 months even more increasingly acting with impunity, because this project of ethnic cleansing is not just about Gaza, it's about the West Bank too. These people want they want everything between the river and the sea, and then they turn around and say that people who want liberation and freedom and equality between the river and the sea, that's, you can't say that that's anti-Semitic when their goal is subjugation between the river and the sea.
It's just absolutely crazy. Dwight McKee, you were saying before we go to the callers?
Yeah, I was going to say, even when we talk about Auschwitz and the Holocaust, it's in racial terms. There were millions of people killed that were non-Jewish in the Holocaust. But the only ones seem to have value in our conversations are the Jewish people that were killed. We're not talking about a home state for the gypsies. Millions of them were killed. We're not talking about a home state for homosexualities. For homosexuals, many of them were killed in the concentration camps. Most of when we talk about the Holocaust, we make it a Jewish phenomenon. And that's not historic. There were a lot of different ethnic groups killed in the Holocaust. And that's why I said that this racial purity is always at the center of this. Is it only has value if it's me. It only has value if it looks like me. It only has value if I can trace it in my bloodline. That's the real evil. When you don't see people as your brothers and other brothers in humanity and sisters in humanity, as you see you as a superior species and anybody other than you as somehow inferior and not worth saving. It's a mindset that has to be addressed.
Let me go to Renee. Renee, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
Hey,
I'm glad Mr. McKee just said that because, there were other people who were killed, including some Africans who were in Germany. But
in
response to what Bryce Green said, genocide in Africa. In response to what Bryce Green said about them being like our little brothers, I would say, to me, it seems more akin to like them being our children, since we have so many people with dual American and Israeli citizenship over there. And I've seen on Democracy Now! People from the Bronx forcing Palestinians out of their homes in the West Bank. Those are our people. And Netanyahu's father taught at, wasn't it Cornell or some American university? So Netanyahu had some experience in this racist country, which may have influenced him to do some of the racist things he's doing over there. And I just want to say what's scary is that for so long.
Did you know he grew up in Philly in part?
Wow. Well, didn't they bomb? Was that Philly where they bombed some black people?
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. It was in Pennsylvania.
Well, it was a black mayor who did that. Wilson Good, the first black mayor they had.
Yeah,
but
I
also,
know.
yes, which lets you know the depth of the human problem. But also, Philly has had substantial racial tensions. You know, so
America, Chicago.
Come on.
But can I say one more thing, Santita, before I have to get out of my car? Okay, I just want to say how scary it is that for so long that people have been afraid to legitimately criticize things that were going on because they feared being labeled a certain title that I don't even want to say right now. And anytime that you fear that you can't stand up for what's right, that's just dangerous because things are only going to get worse and you'll end up with 18,000 innocent people killed when you didn't speak out on October 5th or September 4th about what was going on. Democracy Now! Shows what's going on there and around the world all the time. I just wish the corporate media, but they're corporate. They're not going to show us the truth if it's against their interest. But thanks for taking my call. I enjoy your shows because they're so informative and you're so brave. And I appreciate that. And thank you and thank all of your guests who tell the truth.
Bless your heart. You know, and I thank you for calling me brave. I don't know if I'm brave or just the world's greatest simpleton, but I just believe that that God has already won. And on my great getting up morning, I want God to say, you know, my darling, my daughter, you tried. That's it. Because you know, at the end of the day, I've learned in my own church experience, only what you will do, Dwight, because we grew up in the same church. Only what you do for Christ will last. And I know that Dr. King is more relevant. Oh my goodness, I can get emotional thinking about this, thinking about his last year on earth, and it was hell on earth for him. But you can kill a person, you can't kill an idea, Dwight. He is more relevant today that he was April 4th at 5:59. Wow. Dwight?
Yeah, in particular, a righteous idea, and he was a righteous man because he operated with righteous ideas. But at the heart of righteousness is a sense of brotherhood and a sense to believe that every man's life is as valuable as your life. It was the most profound lesson of Jesus in the Good Samaritan, is that the Samaritans were perceived as a despised people, and yet it was a Samaritan that reached out, that reached out and helped one of his brothers in spite of everything that was happening around him. And so we really have to elevate our thinking to a level that we begin to understand that the value of a Palestinian baby, the value of a Navajo baby, the value of an African baby, the value of an Irish baby are all equal in God's sight, and they all have the same value, and they all need to be protected. They all need to be nurtured. And that has become our new mentality, as opposed to one particular people because their hair is long or because, they are 6 feet tall, or because they have, speak a different language, that somehow they have the more rights and more value than anybody else. And that transcends race, transcends ethnicity, transcends culture. That's about all God's children. There are no children of a lesser God because there's only one God and he's not lesser.
Well, maybe it's time for us to put supremacy to rest. Maybe that's one of the great lessons of this moment. I mean, it's just, it is an idea that never, ever, ever should have gained traction. But it lets you know, Jimmy, that this is not the way. It's not the way. I mean, witnesses say that the IDF walked into a school and executed women and children. I mean, what's wrong with you? And even the UN is saying that humanity must prevail in Gaza. Wars have rules. They're not playing by any rules. They're just killing people. They said they were going to do that, and it's just wrong. Jimmy, you get the final word here. Last minute belongs to you.
Yeah.
No, actually, we have a few more minutes.
I just appreciate so much that. Yeah, I appreciate so much that Dwight, that you brought it back to the children, right? If I can get personal for a second, my daughter was born on October 6th, so right before everything happened.
Wait a minute,
now. We were in the hospital just now.
God bless you. Oh,
she's
my
sleeping
God.
in the next room.
What's her name? Well, do you want to say it or no?
Yeah, her name is Ruby.
Oh, bless your heart.
She's sitting in the next room right now. She's asleep. But we spent the first 18 days, the first 2.5 weeks of her life, we were in the hospital with her. She's fine.
Okay.
But, she was born a little early, needed a little time cooking,
Thank you, Jimmy.
Need a little extra time.
You are a stitch, but go continue.
But to bring it back to to be there at her bedside in the hospital, or to be holding her when all of this was happening, and especially when news was coming in about attacks on hospitals and attacks on NICUs, and seeing these babies in the hospitals in Gaza with horrible things happening to them, right? There's something that when you're holding your own baby in the hospital, that's just hits you so deeply, right? And makes you forget everything else other than our priority has to be protecting the babies and protecting innocent people. Just as Dwight said, whoever they are, whatever they look like, whatever their background is. And I think you're absolutely right, Santita, too. Like, if there was ever a moment that we could take and use and pivot to saying we got to move beyond these racist, these supremacist mindsets, we got to pivot to a mindset of solidarity, that this is that moment.
I think so. I mean, this whole idea of supremacy, I've always felt was crazy. It's not crazy, it's bad minded. And it leads us to genocide. It leads to death always. Because if
Hmm.
someone's 3/5
Exactly.
human, somebody's got to be 7/5 human. Someone's got to be subhuman. Somebody's got to be superhuman. That's just not true. It doesn't work. I mean, how could God be God and do something so crazy? I mean, that thinking is way off. Um, well, Dr. Gibbs, I've got about a minute here,
Yeah.
and then I'm going to have just under a minute for you and just under a minute for
All
Bryce.
right. Okay. I think, again, something I want to come back to is the issue of what America is doing in this conflict. In that the United States is enabling Israel to engage in these kind of horrific mass killings that they're doing. It's enabling Israel to be doing these mass killings run by a government that is openly using phrases like human animals and causing as much destruction as possible. And it's American aid that is making all of this possible. And the United States could, at a moment's notice, cut off that aid on account of the fact that it's being extremely poorly used with horrific consequences. And I think that it's time that the American public should speak up on this issue and insist that this not be done. You've had members of the Jewish community on your program basically discussing what the Jewish community is doing to criticize Israel. The many younger Jewish people who are criticizing Israel, but I think not only Jewish people but people of all religions in this country need to object to this being done with American money and in America's name, and it really needs to stop.
It needs to stop. 30 seconds for you, Bryce.
I just want to reiterate what was just said. If people want to get a closer, more honest look at what's going on, take a look at the English language Israeli press. They'll talk more openly about Israel's policies, about Israel's brutality. Sometimes you'll see more insane things like reporting of elected officials calling for Gaza to turn into Auschwitz. But you'll see a realistic picture of the war, and you'll get a feel for what people over there think. That's invaluable if you want to understand what's going on and our role in it.
And you need to understand. That's what we try to do. We call balls and strikes here. We give you information because information is not just power, it is empowering. Stay right here. I'm going to have closing thoughts from my panel here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share the show. Spread the word. Sending you so much love. Until tomorrow, may God bless you real good. I'm Santita Jackson. Have a great night. Oh, Jimmy, how's your baby doing? How's Ruby? He might have had to leave because, But I mean, so
No, I'm here. She's good. She's good.
Well, I know you have to kind of keep it on the hush because I know new parents get no sleep.
Yeah, I think she's actually just getting ready to wake up.
Oh, okay.
In the next few minutes.
Well, let me let you say what you need to say before you go on daddy duty.
No, I think myself and others have said it. I think this is a moment to stand and to root ourselves in solidarity, and it's also a moment, as both of the last two gentlemen said, to think about how can we pressure our own elected officials not only to call for a ceasefire, which a lot of the representatives from Chicago have done, but further to say we need to be conditioning aid to Israel so that we are no longer funding this. And if the president wants to occasionally say, oh, this has gone too far, whatever, I'm worried about this, he needs to put his money where his mouth is, and he needs to say, we're not going to be sending weapons and money over there for you to be doing this.
But it's as if he's afraid. I know we share a lot of military secrets and on and on and on. And indeed, the greatest traitor that in our history is Jonathan Pollard. And he lives in Israel. That was it's almost as if we're afraid. And I'm like, wait a minute. We have the money, but they might have our secrets. I don't know. There's something that's real off here in this equation, Jimmy. Because America pushes back on just about everybody else.
Yeah, I think I think you're exactly right. There's this really, really intertwined relationship that we need to untangle and dismantle. And yeah, and there's a political thing. There's not only there's these pro-Israel lobbies that people are afraid of, not only AIPAC, but also Christians United for Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think so much there's this right-wing, white evangelical racist power structure that's behind so much of this. Since the 80s, since the moral majority, right? And they're funding so much of the political projects on both sides of the aisle that we're saying, okay, they want Israel because they have some crazy fantasy about the end times and the Jews being, needing to control this so that the Jews can be raptured and the second coming. I don't even know. It's this crazy mentality.
Well, Christian Zionism is nuts, and I don't know why Jews sign up for it, because at the end of the day, if you don't change your belief system, you're going to hell. It's like, did you not catch, did you not catch that part?
Exactly. There was this big, this rally, this rally for Israel that was supposed to pretend to be like it was against anti-Semitism, but it was really just for Israel. And they had an anti-Semitic pastor come and speak. It really, really showed people behind,
Oh, thank you, Jimmy.
It really showed what's actually behind this. It's a political project.
It is a political project, and it is white supremacist in nature, which is something that Dwight continues to amplify. This is white settler colonial project, King Leopold. That's all. This is what this is, and they're being called out on it, and they don't want to be, but they need to be, because this is destructive to all of humanity. It's just destructive. And I think
right. And we need to have a analysis of anti-Semitism that situates anti-Semitism as a necessary part of white supremacy, rather than something that's different and separate, because we need to fight it together, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to fight anti-Black racism, anti-immigration sentiment, anti-Semitism. We're only going to get free together.
And we're only going to stay free together. How about that? Because what did my father say? Slave masters never retire. Slave masters never retire. They just they change their clothes. They might change in a dress, but they never retire. The struggle continues, and victory is certain if you continue with your struggle. Dr. Gibbs, do you have anything else you'd like to say? My favorite professor, the misery maker. Yes.
Well, yeah, just that, again, that in this election, basically, this is going to be a pivotal election, possibly a very ugly election. We all know that. Oh. But, again, maybe we should use this as an opportunity to re-examine basic assumptions of U.S. foreign policy. And one of them is that the 50-year American alliance with the state of Israel has been a disaster. It's been a disaster for this country, for the Middle East, and for Israel itself, not to mention for the Palestinian people. And so perhaps the United States needs to reevaluate its entire policy in the Middle East. And why is it so one-sidedly based on not just support, but subsidization of the Israeli project? And that needs to be subject to public discussion and public debate. And we need to basically put a stop to this intimidation of public debate that we've been seeing in this country.
Oh my gosh, it's been awful. We talk about McCarthyism, and it needs to stop. Yep. Look, in this particular space, it has always been thus. Dwight, and Bryce, wouldn't remember, but you would, Dr. Gibbs, and you've been studying it. Reverend and Mrs. Jackson, I know our family paid a very high price. I'm not bitter about it. It was a wonderful lesson. I look at these things, and my father has trained us to look at these as lessons. Don't get bitter. He said, bitter is never better. It always destroys you. Don't do that. You got to be spiritually disciplined enough to get beyond that. But it's always been like this. And it's just gotten worse. But now, this is you see how this can turn on you. Dwight, You said it can turn on you, and America will turn on you on a dime. As soon as America had the Industrial Revolution, they needed to get rid of slavery. And then they wanted to send us to Liberia. Hello, Dwight?
Yeah, and when we talk about America being co-conspirator in this, I don't think it's fear. I think that it's congruency. We think like this. Biden took the lead on busing. He didn't think that white kids and black kids could go to the same schools and learn the same way and ride on the bus together because somehow the black kids were inferior. He was the proponent of the prison industrial complex. Well, he created the legislation to lock a couple of million people of color in jail to protect the interest of white supremacy. But again, understand they come out of a culture where they were abused and they were demonized. And so he came over, the Irish came over here and did to blacks and natives what the English had done to them. The Israelis do to the Palestinians what the Germans had done to them. Hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. And at some point, until that mindset is arrested, until we can psychologically and spiritually deal with that mentality, that all these indignities will continue, and all this violence and hate and diminished functionality will continue. We have to be born again. We have to become a new people. We have to change our thinking and change our values, and again begin to see each man as our brother, each woman as our sister. Until we get to that point, this is going to continue in one form or another ad infinitum.
Bryce, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, I'd just like to thank you for having me on and reiterate what other people were saying about the nature of white supremacy and how it's really transnational ideology. And it sits atop this structure of global capitalism that ideology sort of legitimates. I mean, there was a reason why we had to demonize foreigners. There's a reason why white people demonize people with dark skin. They're justifying their economic position, their economic structure on top. And in Israel, it's a little different. There's a lot more ideology, but at the core, it's the same. The Palestinians are a nuisance, but they can be useful when they're a cheap labor source. But other than that, they should be dehumanized. People should make the effort to connect these various struggles. The struggle for black folks here in America, the struggle for indigenous people here, is the same as the struggle for indigenous people in Palestine. And the more and more we get together, talk to each other, understand our struggles and our histories, the better shape we'll be in to make a better future.
Dr. Gibbs? Okay, Dwight, closing thought?
My closing thought, it transcends culture and it transcends race, because the untouchables are treated this way in India, and the Hutu are treated this way in Africa. It is the evil in the human condition.
Yes,
and it's not just racial based. Yes. It is based in the nature of man.
Yes,
and that's why I said we all really have to make a conscientious effort to be born again, to become new creatures. In our mindset and how we deal with each other.
Yes. Amen to that. Absolutely. This is a human problem, everybody. We do it to each other. We do this to each other. So that's why going off and being anti-Jewish, if you use this yardstick, you're going to be anti-everybody, including yourself. So just stop. Let's grow up in our politics. Let's grow up and out spiritually, and let's make that change. What did Michael Jackson sing, Dwight? And Oh goodness, and Jimmy and Bryce and Dr. Gibbs, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways, and no message could be any clearer. If you want to make the world a different place, you got to start with yourself and make the change. That's what we have to do. We have to do that. Take a look at yourself and make that change. I mean, really take a look at yourself because we're all in it. When you look at what's happening in the Middle East, this is the human struggle writ large. That's what this is. Same thing, different day, different location. Not really, it's planet Earth, it's all home. Remember, we were once Pangea. All the continents, all the landmass were one. And if you look at the Bible, it says we were separated for punishment because we found excuses not to get along then. Come on, everybody. Let's grow up in our politics and let us end this genocide and this slaughter, and not just in Israel and Palestine, in the West Bank and Gaza. End it everywhere and make things right. Return people's artifacts to them, y'all. You went and you looted and stole from these countries. Give people their stuff back. Give people their money back. Understand that. Folks, your oil is not up under somebody else's feet. You're going to have to work out an arrangement that is respectful and not steal people's stuff or kill people in order to make that happen. That's over. That's over. Nobody's going to tolerate that anymore. And you can kill people, but you can't kill ideas. You just can't. Eventually, truth will prevail. Justice will prevail. Mercy will prevail. God is on the throne and ain't coming down. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Have a great, 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 great day. And thank you, panel. Thank you, panel. Thank you, panel. You all are the best. Love you, everybody. God bless. Thank you, Devin, for a great show. Oh, Jimmy. No, Jimmy. Say something.
Yeah, I'm here.
No, because I didn't realize that you were there. But as a new dad, I mean, you've had you've had a sea change in your life since October 6th, since October 7th. But I would imagine you're thinking this train of thought did not begin October 7th, or it was not. This is not subsequential thinking. You've been on this track for a minute. It seems to me.
Yes, that's right. I've been in this work in one form or another for quite some time.
So what do you want people to know? Wait a minute.
What do I want people to know?
What do you want to tell Ruby and all the other Rubies out here? Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I think just that we gotta be in solidarity with one another, that our struggles are all connected, that we have to see each other, lift each other up, because the only way that me or you or anyone else is going to be truly free is when everyone is free. And that has to be the starting mindset, not these isolated views of thinking where I got to get mine. I got to get myself. I got to take care of my own self and my own people. No, that can't be it, because the same people who are trying to keep you down are trying to keep other people down. Right. Mm-hmm. That's the core message. But I will, I always, something that's been really, it's been hard, I've been in new dad mode. I haven't been able to be in the streets, like I'm used to being, but it's really beautiful to be able to invite people into our home and to hold a baby, to see baby pictures and to provide that for the movement. Cause that's not only me, that's her. So, when she asked me in 20 years, what were you doing in this moment? Yes. I can say it wasn't just me, it was you too in this moment, right? You from your first days were providing comfort and joy to people who were doing the work out there in the street so that they could have the energy to do that. And that makes me feel so, I don't know, so much joy and pride of her, and that she, even at 10 weeks old, has been able to contribute to the movement, to these friends who are out there shutting things down, and making this case. We got to be doing more. We got to be ending this genocide and ending American and institutional support for this genocide.
And keep her in it, because I'm going to tell you, it has been written in many books that you knew there would not be a nuclear attack, certainly not from the American side, when John and Caroline were in the White House with their father. He just had a whole different appreciation. And, our parents took us on the picket lines with them. And I know that being a father at this moment is shaping for you. God would do it at this moment and help you to see the kind of world that you want for Ruby and all the Rubies and the Rubens and the Lakeishas and the Laquishas and the Jamals and everybody, because they're all our children. They're all our children. If the pandemic showed us anything,
right.
we share the same air. I mean, we're down here. We are a human family. We're a human family. And we're gonna have to do right, not do better, do right. Gotta do right. Gotta do right. No. My Uncle Mickey, Dwight knows we're family. We were in the hospital with Mickey Warren, brilliant musician. In fact, he was our church musician, first musician that my father had as he started his organizations. And he ended up going on tour with the Rolling Stones, for example. Brilliant musician. And he was in the hospital. He was quite ill some years ago, but praise the Lord, he's doing well now. And the doctor came in and said, this, that, and the other, what we can do is make you better here. He said, oh, then give me my clothes. He said, I'm not here to get better. I'm here to get well. If you can't make me well, I'm leaving and I will go someplace where I will get well. My grandmother, before she died, Gertrude said, there is one way. It's the right way. So enough of this already. Enough. We don't want to be well. We don't want to get better. We want to get right. I don't want a better world. I want the world to be right. I don't want Ruby to have to experience this, or if she experiences it, I want her to see it through a certain prism so she'll stop it. She needs to know that this happened.
Yes.
All of our children need to know what's happening. That's when you say never again, and not just never again to me, but never again for everybody. No.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Right. It has to mean that, or else what is this for? Right.
It's just, otherwise just selfish drivel.
Yeah.
Nobody, I don't have time for that.
Right. Exactly.
Just me.
Exactly.
You know how simple you sound when you say that? You sound like a child. No, it's very childish. It's very spiritually undeveloped. And I'm trying to evolve while I'm down here. Okay. Before I get out of here, I would love to ascend to a higher level. Thank you. Yeah. We're spiritual beings. We're on. We're having a human journey. We're spiritual beings. I'm totally on that tip. Okay. I'm trying to get right. The only reason I'm down here is because I'm still baking, which you are so crazy. I still need to, I'm in the incubator of life.
You got it. You got it. And we got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
There's a passage in the Talmud that I keep printed out over my desk, and it says, you're not obligated to complete the work, but you're not free to desist from the work. You have to do the work, even if you can't complete it yourself.
Text
and
that
that's,
to me, please.
I think, such an important guiding principle.
Text that, please. Text that to me. Because that's
I will text it to you.
That's why we're here. We're here to do that work, and that's why Ruby came here to do that work. Oh. Oh yeah. No, honey. I'm real clear. For me, Dwight and Dr. Gibbs and Bryce, July 17th, my father that was the first day he was arrested in the freedom struggle in the United States. July 17th, 3 years later, I was born. Then 21 years later, he's speaking at the Democratic Convention on July 17th. I said, Daddy, I came here so we could do this. Come on. Look, come on, let's what? What? Let's do it. Let's make this world right. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this world a better place. But you got to reach out and touch somebody's hand. When you touch somebody's hand, you're not going to slap them. You're not going to punch them. Touching someone, you might hold their hand, and you're gonna have a different approach. I love you all, and if anyone else wants to add anything, let's do that. But I got to get out the studio because they have a show that's coming in. But what a blessing this conversation has been.
Thank you as always.
Oh, my love to you, your family today. Sending you so much love and happy Hanukkah. I know I'm a little late.
Thank you. Thank you.
The festival.
Hanukkah's whenever. Yeah.
No, I try to be on time.
Yeah.
Oh, bless your heart. Even though I know
right.
Jesus was not born on December 25th, I got it. But that's like my designated moment. Okay, I got it, you guys. I love you. I love you, everybody. Have a great
Bye-bye.
one. God bless. Bye-bye.